There's another one you don't want to hear. Frankly, did you want?
1, 2, 3, set, go!
Hello and welcome to episode 28 of the Power Chord Hour podcast. Thank you so much for checking out yet another episode. As always, I'm your host, Anthony Merchant, here with another week of, what we do here on the Power Chord Hour podcast. Play some music, talk to guests, all that good stuff. This is going to be a guest episode. Got an interview for you, and I mean, this is absolutely awesome. I got to do one in person, which, I mean, if you've been listening to the show, you probably know that I mostly do phoners. Not even mostly. I always just about do phoners. And, it's just kind of location. I'm in Jamestown, New York, and we're not, you're probably asking where Jamestown, New York is. And I feel like that might answer your question as to why I do phoners. So, location is a very big part. And, we just don't really get people who come through here and play. And also right now we're in the middle of a pandemic, so no one's coming through to play. And just an area where people really aren't. So I normally do phoners. The people I would love to have on my show do not live around me, so we do that. But I did have a guest who I wanted on, and it was very, very cool. I've played his music before, but a local musician, Joey Cobra, and doing a very, very great thing. He just put out a great pop-punk EP called Fever Dream. We get into all that, his old band Wake, and it was just very cool for me, to also be able to do some local stuff. Obviously the podcast side of this, we're really worldwide. Thank you for everyone listening. I know we do have listeners in other countries. I think that's so absolutely rad. Which also hit me up if you're listening. If you're listening from anywhere, I want to hear from you. But if you're listening in another country, I would love to know if you're listening. powerchordhour@gmail.com. Let me know where you're listening from. I think that's so cool. And, I always get a kick out of that. But, as far as the radio show goes, we are on a local station in Jamestown. So, very, very nice to be able to showcase some local music, which I always try to do. And we don't have a huge punk scene here, and nothing against it. We have a solid music scene. Punk is just not one of the, I just don't think it's one of the main genres that you really hear around here. So, I absolutely love that there's, artists in the area that I can play and kind of put a spotlight on. And Joey's just such a good dude. You'll hear in the interview, not only do we talk about, his new music, we just talk a lot about just punk music in general and pop punk and influences and all that. It's also just, I think, a very fun conversation that two guys who really, really love punk music had. It's also one of those things where I think you can listen to this and, hopefully find some really rad new music that you'd never heard before. But, also hear two dudes just talk about their love for Fat Records and compilations, just some of my favorite things in the whole damn world. And those are a couple of them. But yeah, I love talking to him. And it's very cool too for the radio show because we're up to, this is episode 28 of the podcast. We're up to episode 200 this week. We are going to be airing of the radio show. So it was very cool not only to have a guest, but also to be able to have, in studio, do an in-studio interview and have them also from Jamestown, because all of this starts in Jamestown, even though I talk to people from all over, musicians from all over. And like I said, it's very rad to see that people are listening in other countries, but it's also cool to spotlight, where we're coming from, a little small place that, we're not doing this podcast from, New York City or Chicago or something like that. I'm doing it in a small city of, I believe we have 30,000 people here. So, cool to kind of bring or, kind of share what's going on in my neck of the woods, that I think people listening to the show would enjoy. So yeah, really, really enjoyed it. And, very cool to have this as a 200th episode for the radio show as well, which was unintentional too. I didn't even, a while back I noticed that we were getting close to episode 200 and I'm like, I should probably have a guest, but, also in Anthony fashion, I got a little lazy and, never really got around to that intentionally. I was getting guests, but, I really wasn't, the kind of initial thing of I should do something special for the 200th, it kind of all just fell into place unintentionally. And, I was very, very happy to realize that it's like, oh yeah, like we get to air this for the 200th episode, and get to play songs that he's written and a bunch of other things, some songs that are just kind of close to the show. And, I'm just so happy I've gotten to do it for that long, too, 4 years now and 200 episodes in. And I still love doing it. I love that aspect of it. I know I play music on here, but it's not I would never call this podcast music intensive. Just, for one, copyright's one of the biggest things. Because up until I finally started doing this podcast, I had people always asking, for the radio show, why don't you put it up on podcast form? And it's like, well, I play 16 or 17 songs every episode. And, that I don't think I have to tell you, my ass is going to get flagged the second I put those up as a podcast. They're going to, there's going to be 10 labels that have copyright, claims or whatnot. And some of them are even, I've had copyright claims against some of these podcasts, which if you're listening on YouTube, I do have to apologize. I know there's normally not music in here. I know when you're listening, you probably realize that, there's a chunk cut out, but that's just because a lot of times they'll flag that stuff before you even put it up, or there's there's this copyright thing. And, I just don't even want to mess around with it. It's it just doesn't seem worth the headache. I'm sure some of those probably would be left alone. For one, we're interviewing the people and playing their music. So, I think in the context and everything, I don't think anyone would actually have an issue with it, but it's just not even worth the headache. But doing the radio show and having that outlet to just be able to play so much music. I play stuff on here, but there it's nice because, I have a whole playlist every week where I'm like, hey, I've been listening to this Promise Ring song a lot this week, so I'm going to throw that on. And I'm like, oh, and then I go down a rabbit hole and I'm like, oh man, I was just listening to this. This is such an underrated rad band. It's I haven't played them in a while, so I do that and stuff. And, I never get tired of putting together, just the playlist for the radio show. And, actually, it's kind of funny, too. I because of the way it is, I do bring CDRs. It's kind of funny, but I still use CDRs to do the radio show. And I come down to the station. I have my playlist on there because I've tried doing flash drives before, but something about different formats get all screwy, and sometimes my playlists don't come through. So I'm just the easiest thing is just a CDR. But anyways, I have 200 episodes worth of CDRs now. And, of just basically the playlist for the radio shows. So if you want to hit me up, powerchordhour@gmail.com. It's basically a free mixtape if you want. Just hit me up. I'll send you one of those CDRs. I now have 200 of them just sitting around. If you just want a CDR from all the different episodes, I'll send you one. Maybe it's Power Chord episode 80. And then you can check out what I played on there, And then, maybe you'll discover some bands off of it. But hit me up. I'll throw some of those stickers and guitar picks we got too. But, if you want a CDR, hit me up. But after a while, it's you have so many of them, it's I can't hold on to these. There's I am a sentimental person, so in the beginning it's oh, what do you do with these CDRs now that I'm done? And it's well, I'll keep them, but it's once you have 200 of them, you realize I don't need 200 CDRs with the playlist to my radio shows on them. So hit me up if you want one. I'll send you one out. It's a pre-made mixtape for you, and more than likely punk as hell. Probably no Joser, probably no hashtag Joser shit on the playlist. It's all good stuff. So yeah, hit me up for that. But anyways, I have a nice long interview with Joey, so I'm gonna get right into it now. Just wanted to kind of update you with stuff, and also let you know too, it is a double episode week since we're at the end of the month. Don't forget, we are going to have the July rundown episode here in a couple weeks. So we got a double shot of the Power Chord Hour podcast for you this week. And if you want to check out the 200th episode of the radio show, if you're listening the day this comes out or the week it comes out, it will be this Friday. But I'm going to get into it now. I absolutely love doing this. We're having Joey back. Not only to talk about his music, he has a lot of different music coming out, but it's literally we'll just have him on to just talk about punk music in general. We talked about that after this interview where we could sit here and have a 3-hour conversation really about anything. We could start on our favorite NoFX song and then somehow that snowball into 3 hours of music conversation, which I enjoy. Hopefully you guys enjoy. But that'll be in the future. Until then, though, this is my interview with Joey Cobra right here on the Power Chord Hour podcast. Right now on the Power Chord Hour and in studio, something I do not get to say a whole lot, so I'm very stoked for. Today we are talking to Jamestown musician Joey Cobra, and Joey just recently released Fever Dream, his debut EP. Outside of that, he has been in the pop punk band Wake and a whole lot more. We're going to talk about punk rock with him, talk about the new EP. We're going to get into all of it. It's going to be a good one. Joey, man, how are you?
Great. Glad to be on here. Big fan of the show. Love all of the interviews that you've been doing. Definitely a lot of really awesome musicians that you've been talking to. It's really awesome to be here for sure.
Oh, thank you, man. I mean, I like I said, and as you know from listening, we don't get to do many in-person ones. Very stoked to be able to do one, and with someone too who I am really into, like what you're doing, and kind of, you know, we'll get into it more, but you know, I obviously interview a lot of people from different bands in different places, but for people who like don't know Jamestown, we don't have a lot of punk around here. We don't have a lot of punk music, and I'd say Joey is one of the few ones out there doing it. So, you know, we gotta shine a light on that and kind of get into it. And I mean, you know, Joey Cobra is not the first thing you've done, but it's what you're doing right now. You want to get into that for a minute? Like,
sure.
When did you start doing the Joey Cobra project? Like, how long ago? You know, kind of walk us through the beginning of you know, writing Fever Dream.
Okay. Well, for Joey Cobra, that was something that I was in a band in like high school, college called Itchy Boy and the Cobras. And so as a joke, we all decided to do the Ramones thing where we all took Cobra as our last name. And so what happened was after Itchy Boy had broken up, the guitarist Richie and I got together and did kind of like an acoustic project, and we went by the Cobra Brothers. And we were still kind of under the moniker, like I was still under the moniker Joey Cobra or whatever. And then after that, I started kind of putting out solo acoustic music under Joey Cobra. And so I released like 3 EPs after the Cobra Brothers split up that were just all acoustic. Then after that, I took, you know, a couple years off, then joined Wake and was still kind of under the moniker as a musician, Joey Cobra. And then, this year I kind of was thinking about kind of hanging up the moniker and not really thinking about releasing anything under the Joey Cobra name. And then I decided, I've got this handful of songs and I'm in quarantine, and maybe now's the time to put this music out and see what I can do with it, have some fun with it.
And you're just kind of doing it all yourself, right? I mean, like it's full. Like when you listen to the record, I mean, obviously there's like drums and bass and guitar and all that, but I mean, you're doing everything for this project, right?
Yeah. So I'm basically doing everything on my iPad, actually.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of, I don't know, it's almost embarrassing to say, but I'm just kind of doing everything really low budget, just me and my guitars, my iPad programming the drums and stuff, and seeing how big of a sound I can make, you know, seeing how much energy I can get into these songs. That's
really impressive to be able to do it even off an iPad. I mean, is this like the first time you've kind of recorded that way?
Well, when I first got iPhone, I found that they made a GarageBand app for your phone for the iOS system. And so when I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina in 2016, and when Wake broke up, it was because I was moving, and we had, you know, a handful of newer songs that I thought were pretty good and some of the best stuff that we had ever written, actually. And we never got a chance to make it to the studio to record. And so I was like, yeah, maybe I'll try to see what I can do with this GarageBand thing on my phone. So I bought a little interface thing, and I plugged it into my phone, and I started playing my guitar and my bass and stuff, and singing into my phone, and just seeing how far I could take these demos, and pretty much learning what I could do with it. So I spent a couple of years just kind of building demos and not doing anything with it, not releasing them, just kind of was like, this is for me. You know, these are my songs. I want to be able to hear them kind of fleshed out. And that also is a thing that helps me finish writing a song as far as compositionally and what parts can I fit in here and stuff. I always kind of finish a song when I actually record it and can kind of play out what all the parts are going to be. So in March, we got put on lockdown, and I was like, I'm not going anywhere for a couple of weeks, so let's see what we can do. I've got a handful of songs that I'd like to record, and I just sat down and cranked them out.
That's pretty cool. I mean, like I said, it's so neat that you can do it on there that way. And I mean, it sounds good, like you wouldn't know, I guess, like no one, like at least for me, it's like I listen, it's like you really wouldn't know how it's recorded. And I think it's so cool you can do that at this point anyways.
Well, I mean, technology's definitely come a far way, and I am always trying to learn new things and study what other people are doing and study how far I can take things to make it sound, I guess, as authentic as possible.
So do you kind of like then too, you were mentioning it, do you kind of, for like, I mean, not even just leads, but for like a kind of different things, like when you're recording the song, you kind of someone who likes to do it in the moment or in studio, like so, like maybe you'll like kind of have the bass track that, or like the basic track there, and then kind of add embellishes and little things like just live in studio. You kind of like doing it like that? Are you picking that up?
Yeah. So all of the songs that are on the EP were finished. I mean, they were basically like 95% written. But there's certain things where you're playing something, and when you're able to isolate 2 guitar tracks and just focus on what those 2 tracks are playing, you can figure out, well, maybe I can add in a little something here, or maybe I can change this part to complement what the other part is playing, or do a counter melody. And I really like to kind of break songs down and just kind of analyze what each part is doing to just make sure it works, or find ways that I can improve the part, just to make the best version of the song that I can.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I definitely, sometimes that can be dangerous too, being able to put in as much as you want. I think that is it's a nice thing, and kind of a bad thing in a way that I think you do have now, with being able just to put as many tracks as you want. Because I know when I demo stuff, I'll do like you're talking about. I very much will do the same thing, where it's like, ooh, I can hear where a third guitar will go here, and then you start playing around. It's like, I could put this here. Oh man, I'll pan this here, and it will only be in the Brit. And all of a sudden, you have like 20 guitar tracks.
Yep.
You know?
I think my big philosophy is to overall keep it simple. Don't try to do too much, because it becomes overwhelming to people who are listening to it. It's, of course, when you're writing the music and you're like composing all of these extra parts, which I've done. I've experimented with that and found like when other people listen to it, they're like, you've got too much going on here. You got to kind of dial it back. And that's one thing where actually going to a studio, working with a producer, and having other people's input on your music definitely helps musicians grow. And that's why a lot of the bigger bands and stuff are going into the studio, and even looking back on some great records that you find out were written when some of the members were like 19 or 20 years old, and you're like, those are really well written, like well thought out songs. They probably had a producer or somebody in there kind of guiding them in certain directions and stuff. Because when you're just in your own echo chamber, it's really easy to let all that stuff get away from you. So totally. I definitely try to. I'll even, like, if I'm recording something, just kind of step away from it for a couple days or a week and just revisit it later. Like when you kind of jump down everything all at the same time, it's really easy to like get clouded, your judgment gets clouded. And so, you know, having some kind of way to check yourself is definitely good for keeping everything realistic.
It seems like you've kind of figured out a way to like self-produce yourself in a way that works, because it is true. I mean, you now have to, and you brought up a great point too, like that people don't think of, where you do go, wow, that's a great song, or that's a great record from like a bunch of teenagers. Don't get me wrong, the talent is there, and yes, they probably wrote the songs, but you are right. What we're not thinking about is there probably is like a 40-year-old dude in there who's like, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, hey guys, like, you know, you can't do this. Like, you got to tone that back. So it's kind of nice that it seems like you've kind of figured out what works for you, and you can kind of work with yourself in a way that's like, okay, I can do this. I can do this myself without being too, kind of figuring out to not be too self-indulgent, make sure that it, like, you know, it works for other people and other people's ears.
Yeah, exactly. You know? And a lot of it has kind of come from necessity, you know, like not necessarily having, you know, a studio and a producer and everything at your fingertips, just like, you know. And I've never been in a touring band or a band that have been signed or anything like that. So, you know, I'm just doing this. I've been doing this kind of for myself, for fun, for a long time, and so a lot of it is out of necessity. Like, I got to sit down and do this myself. How can I, you know, push myself to have this song be the most successful version that it can possibly be?
That's cool.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, and I think too, it's probably good because right now with quarantine, there's probably people who are also in your position who haven't had to be for a while, who are kind of the opposite, who have relied on producers and shit, and it's like, ooh, yeah, like I didn't see this coming. Yeah. Like, how do I like, you can record an album with an iPad. That's impressive. Yeah. It's better than one day realizing you have to record with an iPad. Yeah. You're like, what? Like, what do I do here?
Exactly.
You know?
And a lot of bands, a lot of musicians are releasing music right now. It's actually kind of awesome because once this hit, like I thought that I had a good idea, and then, you know, I went on the internet around April and I was like, everybody's releasing music right now. It's crazy. Like everybody, you know, every musician, and especially the DIY kind of smaller musicians and stuff, took this time to be as creative as they possibly could and make some really awesome music. There's tons of awesome releases that are coming out right now. It's kind of overwhelming. It's crazy.
It actually is. Even I'm, because I try to stay on top of, obviously, for the show, and which is also a nice problem to have, because it's like there's like in the beginning of the year, it's kind of funny. Like January and February are always kind of iffy. You know, there's a few new releases, but there's not much. And like for me, I'm kind of trying to find new stuff, and I'm picking and looking, and then all of a sudden this happened, and it's like, now I just have to figure out, like, what do I highlight? It's not a matter of finding. It's like there's so much. It's all right, now I have to, you know, like, what's good? Like, what should I be putting out there? And I mean, another good example of that too, we were talking about obviously before the mics are on, but Scott Sellers, you know, of Rufio, one of the guys who's just releasing nonstop stuff, even before quarantine. But like that's kind of like with you, you know, doing the stuff, self-producing, using the iPad. It's kind of the same with him, where it's like when this hits, he's ready for it. That's the guy who's ready for it. That guy is ready for a quarantine. You know what I mean?
I'm not going to even attempt to draw any similarities to what I do with Scott Sellers, because that guy is from another planet. He is, and he's been doing it since, 2018 was when he put out, like out of nowhere, because I was following him on Facebook, and out of nowhere he was like, oh, well, I just have like all these songs that I recorded, and he put them out on SoundCloud, and he would like, it wasn't even every week, it was like every other day he would like have a new song like uploaded, and I was like, wow, this is this is crazy. And then so, you know, a couple months later, like he's got this full album out, and it was incredible. I was like, finally, like the dude from Rufio is like putting out an album. He put out in maybe 2015 or 16, he put out the Mercy Street album.
Yes, I remember that.
Which I still jam to this day. And it's like, I almost include that with like his new full lengths, because
totally.
As far as the sound and the energy and the style go, it's a departure from, you know, say the last Rufio album. And it's kind of this him kind of moving towards this direction that he's been going in for the past couple of years. And now he's released like 8 different releases,
an ungodly amount
in 2 years, which is like, there was a time when musicians used to release maybe an album a year or something like that. But he's taken it to a whole nother level, and his musicianship is incredible. And he's right now working on releasing another album. God. I'm pretty sure he just released. It was this is like such a 2020 thing. Like he just released a covers album 2 weeks ago, and now, you know, it's like, oh well, that was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, guys.
You know, that's so long ago.
Time.
Now we got to release an entire new album of all new originals. So yeah, he's definitely a huge inspiration, a huge influence on me. But yeah, I would be lucky to even be half as good as what he's doing, and how good he is on guitar. Even singing he's just great all around.
He is so good.
Yeah.
I would say you draw influence. I think you do have a sound that I think you can hear in there, which I think, you know, if you're a fan of Rufio and Scott Sellers and all that, you know, I think you hear it like in Joey Cobra. But like with him too, it is weird, because he went from, like, when you think about it, I mean, that last Rufio record, like 2010, 2011, and then that Mercy Street like album, like what, 4 or 5 years later, and then nothing for a while. Like, it's not like he does that all the time, but the last 2 years, just nonstop.
I wonder what happened. Maybe if you got him on the show, which would be amazing.
That would be fun.
Ask him. That's always been something that I've always thought about. Like, since he started like really putting the pedal down and releasing and recording all this new music, I'm like, what did something happen? Or was he just like, was it, you know, a thing where he was making up for the years that he didn't play music too? Or maybe a combination of things. But like, you know, when Rufio's last album came out, like it had been a few years since their previous album had come out, and, you know, they released like 4 albums or something.
I think altogether they have like 4 records and an EP maybe.
Yeah, so like over the span of
and you know, that's a really good example too, because that was like a span of 12 years that you got that out of it, and already in like 2 years he's like run laps around the whole like Rufio discography, like you know, it's just insane.
And, you know, especially when you're in a band, there's just logistical things, like trying to get practice together, trying to get studio time together, trying to get time together to write songs. Like even just with one other person, as you're getting older, you know, and he's probably, you know, close to 40 at this point. Like that type of time is like more and more precious, and also lacking when the older you get. When you're younger and a teenager, like you're like, well, I don't have anything going on, so let's get together and write some songs. But yeah, as you get older, it's definitely a lot more difficult to get together with your buds. Like,
because Rufio's great too, but I'm sure it's not like paying the bills for them either. So it's like to get some of those other guys where it's like, hey, I'm sure we'd all love to go on tour, you know, every month or whatever, but it's like we have families and we have jobs and like we have mortgages and stuff, and it's like going out and playing Rufio just isn't going to pay the bills. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
I kind of like with you then, though, too, because you bring up a good point, like with being able to have that Joey Cobra name and to go under that when you want, because it is true with bands, it's tough to do that sometimes. Like it has to be so much easier to go in, and it's like when you want to do it, like this, like the new Joey Cobra EP. If you had a whole band behind you, you got to go record that. You got to get on everyone's schedule. Like you can't just put something out like you just did.
Yeah.
If you're in a band.
Yeah, and I won't claim that the probably let's see, I think 2 of the songs we were playing together as Wake. Live at least, and we were playing them as at practices and stuff like that. So there were definitely influences from those other guys in the songs, and we would have recorded them as the band. But at this point, I was like, it was more of just like, well, let's just. I'm bored and I want to be able to record these songs and have people listen to them. If they like them, fine. If not, like at least I put these songs together, and I also made certain choices with the songs to change them enough so that if we were to get together as the band again, which I was, recently, practicing with those guys since I moved back to Jamestown. Nice. I made choices so that if we did get together into a studio, we could record these songs, and they would be able to be a whole new thing. Like I cool. dropped the BPMs, and I made different changes, and I wanted to make intentional changes so that in case we did get together, the songs would be able to be re-recorded and not just like be the same version. Like there's definitely some changes there, but for 2 of them we played as Wake. 3 of them were old Cobra Brothers songs, actually.
Oh, wow.
That I wrote a handful of songs after the economic collapse of 2008. And when I sat down and thought about a group of songs that I could record, I was like, these are songs that are not only still relevant, but they're almost more relevant now, 12 years later.
Wow.
So when we had done things as the Cobra Brothers, it was all self-recorded, self-produced, self-mixed, and
very DIY.
Very DIY. And if you listen to those songs, it's kind of a rough listen, but they're still there, and I wanted to just give them, kind of breathe new life into them, and being just as relevant now, I thought that it was kind of important to release these songs and show, the kind of the type of idea that was going on back then, the things that I was feeling, the ways that our society was kind of working back then are still going on right now. And I just wanted to kind of include those in and really just make this, I don't know, kind of like almost desperate, kind of angry, kind of, just this release that really fit with the world that we're living in today.
It makes sense. I mean, the record does sound relevant now. So, I mean, I got to say, I don't even know which songs you're talking about, but just the fact that it does sound relevant now, I would say, yeah, that definitely, probably a lot hasn't changed if you wrote them that far back, because yeah, they do sound relevant now. For and for some of those, had you forgotten about them, like those real old ones? Like how had you known about them, or were they something that you kind of rediscovered before recording this?
Well, So it's funny because I had this idea to record an EP in case Trump got reelected, and I actually made a list of songs, and this was maybe at the end of 2019 or beginning of 2020, and then so I had it was pretty much the same list of songs. You know, maybe one or two songs were different, but I was like, I feel like I need to say this or like repeat myself in some cases, but I had this list, and I was like, and then when quarantine hit, I was like, you know what? We don't know what's going to happen, and these songs are extremely relevant now. So I just felt the need to kind of release them and kind of make this statement, and just, I don't know, summarize the things that I was feeling and the life that we're living now.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It also, I mean, and as a songwriter too, there's probably something gratifying, which in a weird way, because I mean, at the subject matter that we're talking about too, like talking about how it's relevant, but at the same time, being able to go back and have a song that you wrote so long ago and be able to use it, I'm sure it was kind of gratifying to be like, I can finish this and put it out, you know, an idea that you did start so long ago.
Yeah. I guess I had some reservations about it, but I was like, I think that I've learned enough that I can improve upon these songs and make them work today, and kind of be seamless with the other new songs that I'm recording. So yeah, I one of the songs, so Beating the System, which is like kind of that slower song. It's got the acoustic guitar in the beginning. That one I didn't really change very much at all. The other two I just tried to like transform and make a little bit more epic, and kind of, you know, it's like you know, doing a drawing like when you're like a kid versus trying to do the same drawing as an adult. Like, it's a fun experiment to do, you know, like, and
God, that's a good idea.
Yeah, kind of like see how you've matured and changed, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of the time I don't really like when bands re-record material, but I think for this instance, because not really very many people have heard of the Cobra Brothers album, I felt kind of safe.
Yeah, people don't have like preconceived notions of it. You know, they won't go in and it's like, we've heard this before.
Yeah.
This is kind of a fresh one. It's new to them, basically.
And I think some of the old school like fans and friends who had heard those songs, at least from the people that I've talked to, have heard them, and they're like, this is great, and they just seem so fresh now.
Nice.
And so thankfully it worked. But I kind of had this vision, and I kind of went into my own little world for probably a month straight and worked on this and spent a lot of time kind of just making the songs exactly the way that I wanted them to be.
And I mean, who were some influences, would you say, on this record? Or were some bands you would say that kind of helped shape the sound of Fever Dream?
So Fever Dream, there's little elements of a lot of different bands. Because I had the songs already written, I tried to take different approaches to, you know, things like intros and outros, and make better musical choices than I think I had in the past, because it's been 6 years since I have put out the Wake album, and trying to just like mature the songs in a tasteful way. So I think some of the influences, and being the person that wrote and recorded the songs, it's always hard to think of like what it is that these certain things sound like, but a lot of No Use for a Name, of course, No Effects. I was a huge No Effects fan growing up, and so I always do a lot of like bass soloing in like intros or outros or different parts of the song. So I always try to have that a lot more prevalent than most other bands. Even like Alkaline Trio, some kinds of some little elements there. But largely for that one, I was just trying to like go about it and think about just the songs and not necessarily bring about intentional influences.
Not
from
trying to
other
sound
bands.
like one
Right,
specific
right.
sound or person.
I was just trying to see how far I could push the songs just on my own without any kind of outside influence.
Well, obviously, I mean, punk is, I mean, we've talked about it a bunch, and, you know, the EP, I would definitely call it a punk EP. What were, like, some of the early bands that got you into punk? Like, who were the first few bands that kind of got you interested in the genre in the beginning?
So, of course, No Effects. You know, I had an older brother. I was fortunate enough to have an older brother who's he's 3.5 years older than me, and I've got two other older sisters, but he would bring home cassette tapes and CDs and stuff of music that him and his friends were listening to, and it was around probably maybe 94, 95 was, you know, getting into the Nirvana and Sublime kind of stuff. Of course, Rancid, and Out Come the Wolves was a
that
huge.
time, yeah, that was around the time it came out.
I remember being in 5th grade and like listening to this tape, and thinking like, wow, this is some awesome, like, dangerous music that's like really cool, like blasting in with Maxwell Murder.
Oh,
and
hell yeah.
like to a kid, I was like, wow, this is really, really awesome. So a lot of that, No Effects, and then even bands like a little bit later on, Lagwagon and No Use for a Name,
Great ones.
the Ataris.
Nice.
But I was fortunate enough to be a kid at a time when punk rock was exploding into to everyday life in our world, and it was I definitely reaped the benefits of that for sure.
It's funny to think of now that, like, I mean, like, in Out Come the Wolves, like, how many records that sold, or even like Smash. Like, even when you look back at like really how big punk was and like how much it sold back then and stuff, it's just insane when you compare it to today.
They're platinum. They're
oh yeah.
Yeah, you don't really see that anymore from newer bands, especially. And even if you do, it's not because of their record sales. It's not because of their the sales of their actual music. It's based on so many other things like streams and you know, things like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's something to be said about when that was coming out. There was this almost like a sense of danger and urgency to the music that
They all look like kick your
appealed.
ass too. Like Tim Armstrong looks like kick your ass and steal your wallet.
Yeah. And I think Nirvana kind of ushering that in the early 90s really definitely set the tone for punk coming into the mainstream and the explosion of incredible bands that came out of the 90s and early 2000s.
I wonder if that I still wonder if that was a fluke or like what in it, because obviously, I mean, there's bands who've gotten big after that and stuff, but just to the like how big punk was for a while there, I often wonder if it can ever go back there, because even bands now that like are big within the scene when you compare them, like earlier we were talking about like the Wonder Years and stuff, like that's a big band.
Yep.
But if you compare them, like their biggest to like them at their biggest, and probably one of the biggest pop punk bands right now is probably where like, I don't know, like Blink-182 would be at like Dude Ranch, where it's like a band who aren't even at where they would get success-wise, and that's kind of like the platform now. Like you're like the biggest band is kind of only at like the beginning of some of these bands in the 90s, like the beginning of their success.
Yeah. I think also that's almost just a testament to where the music industry is at in general.
True. That's true.
It's not, it's, you know, no longer about, you know, your radio play and your record sales or anything. It's and even like concert sales and stuff, like people aren't doing, you know, concerts to 20,000 people anymore.
No.
And in this world, maybe they might not be for the foreseeable future for a very, very long time. And even if they do come back, it's never going to be the same.
Yeah.
There's going to be permanent changes to the music world for the foreseeable future.
That's a bummer. I think you're right.
Yeah.
It is a bummer. Yeah. It's like,
well, at the same time, you know, you can still have those underground DIY, you know, like bar shows where you've got you don't have more than, you know, 50 or 100 people in the building at the same time. It's not that's not going to be the same, but you can still do smaller venue shows, which are like the core of like what makes punk rock so special.
Well, I had this thought recently, and it would probably take a while because I don't think people would be into it right now, understandably. But I wonder if we're not going to see a big resurgence in house shows eventually. Because for one, we're talking about how a lot of venues aren't going to reopen. Mm-hmm. And I was talking about this. The venues that are going to reopen are the big ones, are the ones who are probably the theaters in your city, are probably like 1,000 cap, 12,000 caps, or the House of Blues, or the Live Nation owned ones. The dive bars and stuff the punk bands are playing at, there's a chance they're not reopening. So you can't go play a 1,500 cap place, but you can go play that dude's basement where, you know, you can fit 30 people. Now, right now, people, you know, it's probably frowned upon, as it should be. I wouldn't say go do house shows.
Exactly.
But I'm wondering eventually when it gets to a point, and same where maybe things aren't open yet, like, you know, live shows are probably one of the last things to come back. But it might get to a point where things are starting to get a little more relaxed and people are like, well, we can't do it on the books and we can't go, you know, do the theater show. But once again, this dude has a basement and we can kind of go have it there and it kind of be on the down low. Like, I really do wonder if, like, I almost said 6 months. We might be looking more like a year, but like in a year, you know, like I could really see house shows becoming a very big thing. Because it might not even be by choice. It might be like the only thing that's still open in our city is like the Allstate Arena, and unless, you know, you're Bon Jovi or something playing some, you know, arena place, there's nowhere for you to play anymore. Like all those dive bars are gone. Yeah. Not only that, maybe just unconventional places too. We also might just see some weird venues pop up. You know what I mean? Like I've seen Tommy Stinson's done some really cool tours, or I've seen him play weird ass places. I've seen him play the back room of a brewery, like where they put their inventory. Like I've seen odd things like that where I go, maybe we're going to see a lot more of that.
Yeah. Also, I think a lot more outdoor venues. Like I think even with house shows and stuff, it's probably going to be a lot of, well, let's just set up out back and we'll play until the neighbors call the cops. But
which if you own a big piece of property, though, that's the other thing. It's like if you own like some property like kind of further outside of town or like in a suburb, it's like, yeah, if you got the room and there's some distance between the neighbors, maybe you start doing things like that. Like it's a house show, but it's in our big ass field, you know.
And then even I guess replacing like mid-size concerts would probably be like outdoor venues where you know, you've just got a stage and a big field and people can socially distance and feel feel a little bit more safe, but still, have the enjoyment of being at a live show. And I think that they're still doing that, or at least they were trying to kind of trickle that in a little bit. Unfortunately, our country's kind of like gone in a little bit of a different direction than what we thought at the beginning of June. But I think, definitely outdoors kind of stuff is going to be a big thing.
Like a lot of trial and error too, of just seeing some weird things. That some things will stick, and then some things you'll look back and go like, what?
It's a whole new world. A whole new world for sure.
It's going to be really, I don't know, it'll be weird seeing it. Because it is nice, and like you were saying, or like we were both saying, is like there's so much music being released right now. The one bummer, though, is the lack of live show. Because there's so many things like there's just so many albums. Like the Suicide Machine's put one of my favorite records of the year out so far. And you listen to those songs, and I hear ones where I'm like, shit, like I hear that where it's like everyone's just jumping on top of each other. Like you hear and you're like, I want to hear that song live. I want to hear that song live. And you can't, it's like you can't do that part where it's like, damn, like including a couple fat bands put out some real good releases this year where I'm just like, I see this in a very packed club, getting beer thrown on me, pushed around in a mosh pit, like just, like you see that and you're like, God, I long to get my feet stepped on again, to get my Vans and my toes smashed. Oh, man. I long for that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see what the future holds.
Kind of going back to that, like your early punk, and I mean having an older brother, were you a comps guy? Because I mean you were there in the '90s and stuff. That's that's the time, including like with those Fat Records band and stuff. Yeah. Did you find a lot of stuff off compilations too?
Absolutely. So and early on I didn't really necessarily know who I was listening to or what comp I was listening to, because they were all, pirated cassettes. It was it just had like cool mixed and Sharpie on it, and so I remember listening to one of the Fat comps and hearing Atari's San Dimas, and hearing Lagwagon May 16th, and hearing Strung Out, King Alvarez, and No Use for a Name. Hearing some of the NoFX songs and stuff. I mean, it was so around maybe 1998. That was when like NoFX released So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes, and like
my favorite.
I remember hearing these songs that were so, they're so fast but so melodic and had this passion that I realized then that was probably some of the best music that I was ever going to hear, which that's all completely subjective and like all about your point of view.
I agree with you though. It's subjective, but I can't disagree with what you're saying.
Yeah. And people older than me would probably disagree and say like, well, the stuff that was written in the 80s or stuff written in the 70s is the best that it could ever be. But to me, that just happened to be like my time where I needed to hear that, and it had that huge impact on my life, and it was something that I'll always, be able to carry with me.
There's a timelessness to it, because like I mean, all these bands that we agree on, we both love, yet we found at different times. Like Out Come the Wolves. I heard that in 2010 when I was 17. That was the first time. So it's like, but like, look at how that goes. Like, I'm still 17 listening to this, and it hits me the same way it hits someone in 1994, 95.
Yeah.
It's a different era, but it's the same thing. I go, holy shit! Like this, you know what I mean? This bass solo and all this. Like it's nothing is taken away from it. I don't think. And even that, it's like, I'm 27 now, and I bet there's 17-year-olds who are hearing like Linoleum for the first time, who are hearing Punk and Drublick, and like I think it's probably doing the same thing for them, where it's like doesn't really matter what year it is. It's just if you're a angsty teenager or whatever, it's like if you hear NoFX or something, like they were just so snotty, and it's like it's just the humor and everything. It doesn't take itself too seriously. I just think it's going to hit you. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't matter. It's just a good record.
Well, also, I think the stuff that came out back then still like does have this kind of authenticity and originality versus music today that if kids are growing up and they're listening to only music that came out, probably after the year like 2004 maybe, they've probably never heard a song that hasn't had some kind of auto-tune in it or pitch correction in it. And so like listening to those albums like from before that was even invented, like is like, whoa, this is what real people sound like. This is what real music sounds like. There's this raw kind of edge to it that I think today's music standards have kind of polished away a little bit.
Which with a band like NoFX, like even though they are good, they also weren't into that. Like they didn't like, we don't tune our guitars into that. It's like we're writing good songs, but it's like, that's the thing. We're writing the quality songs. We've kind of lost that where there's more attention on to the production sounding great, or having auto tune or like a beat detector, so the drums right on, right on that downbeat. And it's like, but you're missing the point because there's like all this other stuff that some of it's sloppy, some of it isn't the most beautiful thing, but it's like, God damn, it's genuine, and you feel something listeing to it.
It was made by people,
and
you can tell that. You can tell that.
It's like it was just made by some punks in a studio. Probably, not a lot of money either. Not a lot of time to overdo things. Like you screwed up, goes to record. You miss that.
Yeah.
Would that be your favorite era of like punk? Would you say? I mean, like that Fat Wreck era, that like mid '90s. Is that kind of your favorite era?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely my wheelhouse for sure, hands down. There's been some incredible records written, after the year 2000, stuff that's come out, over the past 10 years that I think is really great. There's stuff from, the 70s and 80s that I think is amazing. But I guess just from my perspective, from my journey, that was the music that hit me and had the most impact at that time. So I'm always going to kind of view that as my kind of favorite style of music. Now there's bands that are playing now that are drawing that influence, and a lot of the most ways that I'm doing that, like it's all the people that grew up in my situation that were like, idolizing NoFX and Lagwagon stuff, and they're the ones that are like writing music now, and it's hearkening to that era that we all want to strive for, as far as musicianship and songwriting and everything. Like the latest Hit the Switch album, I don't know if you heard that.
No.
These dudes, they were a band maybe 2004, 2005. They released a couple of albums and didn't really do anything after like 2008 or 9. And they released a new album. I call it new. Came out in 2018. But that's new to me.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. And but they wrote it's called Entropic, and it's one of the best things I've ever heard in the past 20 years. It's amazing. It's like this great high energy skate punk. You definitely should check it out.
I'm gonna have to listen to this.
These dudes are rippers. They know how to play guitar. Their drummer is a beast. He's the drummer for I want to say he's in he plays in Voodoo Glow Skulls.
Oh, nice.
He's in a couple of different bands. Maybe Authority Zero. He's in a few different bands.
Oh, if that's the one, I think he's in Good Riddance too. I think it's maybe Authority Zero's drummer. I remember the same guy because they're Authority Zero's drummer. I think plays in like Good Riddance and a couple other ones too. That dude plays in like 4 bands or something.
Yeah. That dude's a beast, and I can't say enough good about that album. Like I was completely blown away, and I still listen to that, and I'm like, I can't believe these guys did that. And I waited like 10 years for this album to come out.
Nice.
It took them. I remember like they announced that they were recording like maybe 3 or 4 years like before the album actually got released. So I was just like, oh cool, album should come out soon. And then a year passes and I'm like, oh cool, album should come out soon. And they're like, well, maybe next year.
They're no Scott Sellers.
Oh yeah, exactly. But at the same time, like you've got these dudes who are getting into their 30s and having kids and jobs and stuff. Like that type of stuff is tough logistically to get together and be able to do that. You can't just like cancel everything and go to a studio with your bandmates for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and focus just on music.
Yeah.
That's not the type of like, even if you're on a record label, that's not necessarily the type of like deals that every band can get these days. Yeah. So, it's definitely, it's important to be patient with some of the bands that are not 20 years old anymore. But, then you've got people who were locked up in quarantine and decided to release, a couple different albums and stuff and record a bunch of stuff. So I guess that's the silver lining to, being locked up for the past 4 months. A lot of people did some really awesome and creative things.
We've gotten some really good music.
Yep.
I think as a fan, that is the better people should have that mindset more, that you do have to realize that when your favorite band gets back together like years later, it's probably more of like a thing that they do out of the love of it. Like those guys who were like in mid-level to even like smaller level pop punk bands in the early 2000s, them getting back together now is not a payday. Like they're not, Coachella's not paying them $1 million to like reunite. Like, so like sometimes people get like that and it's like, well dude, like I'm sure they still love it, but they're not 21 anymore. Like this is like that was once the most important thing of the day. Now that's like 4th or 5th on the list.
Right,
you know what I mean? And it's like, you just have to realize that because those guys probably are living the same life that the fans who are waiting for the stuff are. It's like, these guys aren't that different from you. It's like, they're living your life and also trying to like release music and shit. So, having that mindset's good. But I did want to jump back, for a minute, like with Wake. And I mentioned it earlier. I mean, like what you're doing now at Joey Cobra and what you did with Wake in the Jamestown area, we just don't have a lot of punk bands, pop punk bands. Like when you were doing Wake, I mean, were you guys like one of the only ones doing it? Like I always wonder if I was missing other bands in the area, or were like you guys kind of the like few ones doing that sound when you were doing it?
In Jamestown, I think that there were some other people playing in punk bands and stuff, but not in the vein that we were trying to go for. And we all grew up, with that early kind of 90s punk influence for sure.
The good stuff.
And James, it was a funny story about Wake. James Solo, he was the drummer. He's a beast. He's one of the best drummers I've ever seen and worked with, and he was in a band in the mid to late 90s called Plug, and now they were going to school with my older brother, and so my brother of course was like bringing home their tapes, their cassettes of the albums that they were releasing, and when I heard that, it was the first time that I was hearing somebody that either I knew or somebody that like I was at least like somewhat connected with, because these guys had like stopped by my house, or they were hanging out with my brother or whatever, And so like it was that one step that made me think, okay, so this is real. Like this is something that people can do.
Yeah.
It's not just like me idolizing it. It's like this is attainable, and these are dudes that my brother knows that are playing music that's awesome. And so it was one of those things that kind of helped push me in that direction of like wanting to play in a punk band and play music. And so then when in about 2011, James and the original bassist Aaron Hall were in a band called Escape Tower, and they split up, and Aaron, who is still to this day a good friend of mine, he shot me a text. He was like, hey, James wants to know if you want to start a punk band. And I was like, okay. So then we met up with our buddy Jim Weaver, who was one of the original guitarists, and we just talked about like, all right, well, we want to play in a punk band and have that kind of 90s old school sound, and that was it. And then I went home and just started writing songs and cranking out songs, and it was kind of this really awesome kind of full circle thing where I was now playing with one of the guys that I grew up being influenced by, and now I got to work with him. And James is James was in Smack Dab and The Audience and a lot of like
nice.
the bigger local bands.
Those are big. Like as far as local band, like for people listening, like those are like the big local bands around here.
Yeah. So the bands that if you wanted to go see a show this weekend, those were the bands that were playing and stuff. So it was really awesome for me to be able to work with him and be able to crank these songs out, because I hadn't played in a full band since maybe 2006.
Oh, it'd been a while.
It had been a while. The Cobra Brothers album that we did, we recorded it as a full band, but we played like one show like as a full band, but the rest of them were like just solo, like acoustic kind of thing. So it was really awesome to be able to like be in this just fast, like high energy punk band, and be able to explore songwriting. I think definitely at that point my songwriting ended up evolving a little bit and maturing, and being able to like come up with different parts, and having these other older dudes that were bringing in their influences and stuff and stylings into my songwriting. And so it was definitely a lot of fun, and I'm definitely really proud of the album that we put out, No Burden, in 2014.
It's a good record. We've definitely played things off it on the show. How long then? Like, I'm trying to think of the timeline. Like, year Wake started, year you broke up. Like, what was your run?
So we didn't technically start practicing together until probably January or February of 2012, and by about August 2016 was when we broke up.
Oh, okay.
That was when we did our final show, and then I moved the following month down to North Carolina. So
down there.
Mm-hmm.
Like for Wake, when you guys were together, were you playing? Did you play a lot of shows together, or
not too many? We did. Actually, it's funny. We did one show at the local indoor skate park. It was I want to say it was Suburban Blend at the time, but it's JSP now, Jamestown Skate Products, and they've got a sweet indoor skate park on the second floor of this old factory building.
Yeah,
it's like,
it is very
it's
cool.
the coolest. It's like such a Jamestown thing, like this old factory.
Speaking of unconventional venues.
Exactly. So we were playing they do like a chili bowl skate bash every like around New Year's, and so that was our first show, and we were set up to record that May, and our bass player Aaron ended up quitting, and our other guitarist Jim had quit previously, and so what we did was hunkered down as a two-piece and rehearsed the songs for a month, and recorded. We actually recorded the drums, bass, and guitar to tape at High-Low Studio up near like Fredonia, and in this dude's barn. And we ended up spending the next 18 months like kind of getting this thing mixed. James's cousin Justin Nettie, who lives in Austin, Texas, super talented dude. He had like worked on some of the audience things, and just really great audio technician, producer. He was working on mixing it, and we just ended up, because there was only two of us, we didn't really like practice or anything. But we spent a long time getting it mixed and produced and everything, and then we released it, and we got our buddy Josh Almquist came in to play guitar, and then we got Dana Clausen, who's a really incredible guitarist too. He joined the band, and then we did handful of songs or a handful of shows, maybe every other month or something like that. We didn't play too often, but
not too bad though for a local band. I mean, there's a lot of, you know what I mean? Like if you're playing like every other month, that's not too bad.
Yeah, we did a show up in Buffalo, and we just, because all of the guys, I was the youngest member of the band, and I was also the only one who didn't have kids. And so I had much more free time than the other guys did. So that definitely taught me patience to be able to understand, like, this isn't something that we're all like doing full time. Like we this is our fun, get together, get out of the house, a couple times a month, and be able to rock out and stuff. So it kind of was that for about 2 years, and then that's when I ended up moving.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's the thing too with we brought it up before, but like with bands, it's like it's very difficult with like 4 different people, because you do, even like you all may have different things. Like you may want to do it and play out and do kind of become a nationally touring band and play more places. Then there's other guys in the band who are like, we're gonna kind of do the weekend thing. It's like we play weekends and stuff. So it's very difficult. That's why I think it's also nice now, with the technology and everything, to be self-sufficient, be able to do kind of like the Joey Cobra thing, where when you do want to release it and when you do want to produce it and stuff, I mean, you can make something that doesn't, it may be recorded and produced on an iPad, but it doesn't sound like it. You know what I mean? Like, it no longer sounds like it. There was a time where when you recorded in your bedroom and stuff, it sounded like you recorded in your bedroom.
Yeah, you can get away with a lot of stuff these days.
Oh, but, yeah. Like now it's like, compared to then, it's like you can't tell. It's like you really can't tell.
And also, I mean, the world that we live in now is like, nobody, no matter what, is playing shows. In the near future. So, everybody's kind of had to make this move of like, well, let's record our music and put it out so that people can listen to it. And fortunately, a lot of bands are doing live stream shows and stuff, which is really cool. But then at the same time, it also is just kind of a daily reminder of like you just staring at your phone, watching these people play, wishing you could be there, like, drinking a beer and singing along.
I got to pour a beer on myself and step on my own foot.
Yep. Mosh with your cat.
Gotta mosh my my living room.
Yep.
It does. It is a weird reminder, because it's like, I mean, it's nice, and I'll watch it for a while, but I'm like, because you can, like, the thing is, if you're into that, and I am to a point until you get that reminder, but it's like, if you're into that, there's a band performing every day.
Yeah.
You can watch
Yeah.
a band every night do a live stream. Like, that is kind of nice where it's
Yeah.
like, if you don't mind that, every night they're like the Ataris. Like, I know Chris was playing, like, I think full albums, I think just
yeah.
like live, like
Yeah.
on Instagram or something. Like,
Yep.
doing End Is Forever tonight. Like,
Yeah.
and then playing songs too. Then you start doing that. It's like, these guys are playing songs they've either never played before or like haven't played forever. Like, I notice a lot of bands playing things that they like have almost outwardly refused to play live, and now all of a sudden it's like,
Yeah,
now
exactly.
we're playing. When you're playing that much, it's like, all right, now we got to play that.
Yeah, even Joey Cape from Lagwagon
Yeah.
did the Bad Astronaut set, which was
I would have liked to see that.
So Bad Astronaut put out 3 albums, right? And never played a show.
Oh shit, that's
They
right.
they never played a show, and so to the fact that he actually like sat down and recorded a set of him like playing those Bad Astronaut songs, I think definitely like a lot of people were so happy that they could experience that, because he never did that. And one of his projects called The Playing Favorites
Oh, I've never heard that.
was this one album. Basically, it was him and like 4 other musician dudes who were like also producers and stuff. I know Marco, who was in Bad Astronaut,
He was in Sugar Cult
and
too.
Sugar Cult, yeah.
And the Ataris for a second.
Yeah. And so they recorded this album, and they each like wrote, maybe 3 or 4 songs and came to the studio. And so there's like 3 different singers on this album, but like the other ones are doing like backup vocals on the songs. Like, it's one of the coolest albums that I've ever heard of a band that never played a show. And like they probably went to the studio, recorded these songs, and then never got together to play these songs like after that. I mean, you wouldn't need to, but it's such a awesome, like, totally unknown album.
I love Joey Cape. I've never even heard of this.
You got to listen to it. It's one of my favorite Joey Cape releases, and it's really cool having like, some of the songs are his, and you can tell they're like total Joey Cape songs, and then you've got like other dudes, and then you've got Joey Cape singing like the backup vocals on these other guys' songs and stuff. It's a really, really well-rounded, just really cool album. You should definitely check out for sure.
I'm gonna have to listen to that. He's another one who writes. I mean, like, same like the 1 Week project. It's like, that's another one where I think he has quite a hand in like a lot of the songwriting for that. And it's like, they just record him, and then it's not like he ever plays them again.
Yep.
He just works with the whoever he's working on for that 1 week, and that's
Yeah.
about it. That guy's always good though with like interesting projects like that.
Yeah, and you can tell he's like a musician's musician. Like, he loves the craft, and he puts so much thought and energy into the things that he does, and makes sure that he doesn't repeat himself. And this dude is a legend, so
Absolutely.
like the fact that he's done all of the things that he's done is just a testament to like how much he's just doing it because he loves music.
Yeah.
And always has.
He's like Fat Mike to me, where it's like they always do very interesting like chord progressions and stuff too, like things that just write in a way that bands don't. They don't go the conventional route. Like, when you start breaking him down, you're like, wow, like he like goes like where you think the chord's gonna go, or you think it's like, nope, doesn't do that. Like,
do something.
He never wants to do the predictable thing.
Yeah, definitely unexpected. And I think that definitely comes with age too. When those guys are getting older and they've written literal punk rock anthems, like timeless things. Like, they're like, well, I've already done that, so I might as well use this time to like get creative and try to challenge myself and try to actually think about the song, as opposed to what I think people are going to want to hear.
I think
Yeah.
that's true, which in the end is the better thing, because you don't
Yeah.
want, you can go there and go, well, I'm kind of a legacy actor or whatever now, and you can just like that dude could just shit out, I'm sure, something that sounds like Let's Talk About Feelings every couple of years, and
Yep.
could probably, his fan base would buy it and
Yep.
he'd make some money, but it's like he doesn't want to do that. It's like, yeah, that's not fun to me. It's
Yeah.
like I don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
Exactly.
I think too, a lot of fat bands, I've kind of liked watching it, because like Legwagon's one of them. There's like Strung Out. I don't know. There's a bunch of like those fat bands who in the 90s were having their stride and their heyday.
Mm-hmm.
The early 2000s were kind of their time where they kind of shifted sounds. A lot of times they were putting things out where could be polarizing. You know what I mean? A lot of those bands were putting out polarizing things. And then I feel like the 2010s were when the bands kind of reeled it in and kind of found this like, you know, we're not the same band from the 90s. We are doing what, like, the artistic integrity is there, like we're doing what we want, but we also are kind of at this place where we figured out where fans are happy with what we're doing.
Yep.
But we're also not just putting out, you know, part 2 of whatever our big, you know, like whatever big Strung Out record, like we're doing part 2 of it. It's like instead
Yeah.
they kind of took that time, and it's like you have a few records that are polarizing, but what that kind of did was it brings you to that place where they can expand and be like, we're happy with what we're doing, but the listeners are also, you know, happy.
Yeah. Strung Out for sure is one of those bands that they've continued to be able to progress and evolve, but also keep to the core of what they do and change. I think even like No Use for a Name did that, where you have these really classic albums that they released in the 90s, and then kind of took a little bit of a different direction towards maybe the more melodic side of things, but continue to push and innovate. And the latest Strung Out album, every time they release an album, I'm like, this is the best thing they've ever put out.
The last 2 especially, I feel like the last 2 records they put out were like probably the best ones since the 90s.
Those are some face melters for sure.
Those are good. Like you put them on and I'm just like, my God, like, and I love when bands are like to me, that there's almost like a warm fuzzy feeling I guess you get when there's an older band who has had that, where it's like there are albums that people don't always love and they're not the new band anymore, but they're coming out and putting out shit where I go, man, this is like the Suicide Machine's another one. They put out one of my favorite records this year, and I'm like, these guys aren't new. Like, this isn't new. This is album what for them? They've been a band, I think, literally longer than I've been alive. They started a few years before I was alive. They're not like the fresh new faces, but they're writing shit where it's like, oh my God, like they're still the best at it. Like they're putting out stuff where I'm like, oh no, it doesn't matter. Like that energy's still there. It doesn't matter that they're older. It's still good.
Suicide Machines, which your interview with Jay Navarro was pretty epic. But even they took a turn in their music styling in the early 2000s, which I think kind of created some of the best like hardcore ska. I don't know what genre you can call those things.
That's a hard one. Including from like you look at like Self-Titled, where they kind of had, you know, they were almost going for, I don't want to call it poppy, but obviously for Suicide Machines, that's a pop record.
And their first album was like, it was almost like a Operation, like the 90s version of Operation Ivy, and
kind of if they would have kept going, if you think about it, like if Op Ivy kind of would have maybe kept being a band and stuff, I wonder, you know, I almost feel like it maybe would have went that way, kind of towards that sound.
Did you ever hear Kamen Rider?
No, I've heard that name.
That's Jesse's new band after Operation Ivy.
Ooh, I gotta listen to
that he started. I want to say it was like the early 2000s, but he put out 2 albums with Kamen Rider that were really, really good, like just like rock with some ska influence albums.
Nice.
Like it's definitely not, you know, it's not Operation Ivy, but those are some really, really good ska influenced songs.
I gotta listen to that.
Well, we're on that, but yeah. So Suicide Machines, they had that sound, and then they went in a little bit more of a pop direction, and then
a whole turn
and then they
around.
were like, you know what, we're really angry about a lot of things in this country, and we're gonna like scream about it, and like they put out two really great records, and then they split up, and this new record is them picking up exactly where they left off and just crushing it. Like nothing. Sometimes you have a band that reunites, and they lose that thing that made them special.
It's sad, but it happens.
And maybe it's because they're like overthinking it, or maybe something changed, and they can't quite figure out how to get that thing back. But yeah, Suicide Machines 100% did a great job on this new album, and it's like they never left, for sure.
I love that. I love that record, and I love when bands I feel like Fat Record bands are kind of having that again. They're kind of having their like second stride where they're all like putting out stuff where like you kind of do put it up with some of the early, like the new Suicide Machines. I put that up with the first two records. Like I go like, it's as good as that. Like those first two are my favorite, and I'm like, this is as good as that. Like these bands are kind of putting things out like that again, which as a fan is like huge. I'm like, oh hell yes.
Broadway Calls just came out with a
good.
new
I heard
album.
the first single. I haven't heard the whole album. I only heard the first single, but I liked that.
I was listening to that the other day. They've definitely got some bangers on that album, and the new Lawrence Arm
just listen to that today
is like, that's just it's the Lawrence Arms. They haven't put out an album in I don't know how many years.
Metropole was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Singing that today. Metropole was 2014.
Yeah. And even that, had been quite a few years since.
And Calcutta was like 08, I think.
2006 or 6 or 8.
Yeah, not 08. You're right. I think it was 06.
So when you think about the amount of music that these bands are recording over the better part of 15, 16 years. The new Lawrence Arms is definitely, it's new, it's innovative, and it's still like got what it is that you love about the Lawrence Arms. And like I've always been a huge fan of Chris's songs and his songwriting and his voice. And then you have Brendan in there like breaking things up and doing his thing, and like it just works for them. I saw them right after they released The Greatest Story Ever Told.
Ooh, it's my second favorite Larry Arms record.
That album is so perfect in my opinion.
So good.
It's amazing, and they've definitely got some really, really great music, and their new album is up there with that.
Oh, absolutely. No, they're another one where, it's like those guys have been, Lawrence Arms has been a band for 20-something years now, and it's like you're still putting out good music. There's just so many bands who 20 years in are just not, who are just like, all right, we hit autopilot on like year 11, we hit autopilot. It's like, let's ride this one out. Where it's like them, it's like, no, which I kind of like that, because they don't put records out consistently, but what you get is a good one every time. Like they have a good track record. So what they're not doing is, well, this one's good, and then they put one out 2 years later, and it was like iffy, and then the next one was like whatever. It's like, like everyone has a quality to it, because they're not just putting them out, like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think that helps with bands. Like we're saying, live music is not a thing that we're thinking much about now. But like for Joey Cobra, I mean, long term, could you see yourself doing live stuff, or would you're bringing up like, with Wake playing some of those songs with them, like could you see making Joey Cobra a live band thing, or would you rather do that more with a band per se?
It would probably be the band. I did, after I moved back to Jamestown, I did get together with the guys from Wake, with James and Aaron is playing bass, and Dana was playing guitar. We got together and tried writing some songs, and unfortunately with everything that's happening, we didn't necessarily get to flesh those things out. And so I would definitely, when it came to playing live and playing with a full band, it would be with playing with those guys, and it would probably be a new band, with a new name, and just kind of trying to, whether it be these songs or trying to innovate and write new songs. If I'm playing live and it's not acoustic, like I guess I wouldn't be opposed to playing, like doing like maybe a live stream acoustic or something like that, but
a good idea.
It's probably going to be a band, and as far as I know, would be with those guys. We're still planning on getting together and jamming when we can.
And I mean, if people, and we'll play, I am going to throw a Wake song on here too, and play some Joey Cobra. I mean, like, for people who haven't heard, I mean, that makes total sense too. Like, I feel like doing it with the Wake guys, I'm like, that sounds not so different where you're like, that's left field. It's like, that totally makes sense that you would go do that with them.
Right. And some of these songs we probably will end up translating to the band and evolving and just kind of making our own. And I've actually got another release that's coming out on August 7th of something, which it's funny because it's a new release, but it's all stuff that I recorded in 2013, 2014 with my buddy Chris Bell. And when I was doing most of my solo stuff, I was recording with him. And I had this EP that my buddy Joel Murray played drums on. He recorded at one of his buddy's studios in LA. Then I recorded the rest of it here. And it's just like this little group of songs that kind of fit thematically. It's almost like a concept album. And some of the songs are like with a full band, some of them are acoustic, one of them is like all piano, and like kind of like got this really kind of atmospheric sound. But these songs, I mean, I recorded them in 2013 was when I started. I finished in about 2014. I added a couple things here and there along the way, and unfortunately, it kind of got put on the shelf until this year. And Chris sent me new mixes, and of course, I had some notes for him to like make more work for him. He definitely was super patient with me. Like, I can't thank him enough for the amount of work that he's put into this and the amount of patience that he's had with me on this. And but yeah, so I've got this new EP called Way Too Many Mistakes. And it's coming out on Bandcamp on August 7th, and then it'll be on like Spotify and everywhere else on August 14th.
Oh, nice.
But
so pretty soon. We're talking, I mean, at the time of this, like a couple weeks.
Yeah. So, and that's going to sound very different from the Fever Dream Joey Cobra EP. It's going to be, and because I've recorded it, over 6 years ago, is going to have definitely a different sound. It's still me. I actually did an acoustic version of a Wake song on that as well. And but yeah, it's people who have heard me for the first time on Fever Dream are going to listen to this and be like, "Whoa, he changed the sound." But that's not really the case. It was more of like kind of like a project and experiment kind of thing, and it wasn't really something. It was something I was doing for me and not necessarily to try to get out and have people listen to. But if people, check it out and they like it, then that's awesome.
Nice.
But it was just kind of like a long-term goal just for myself to be able to get it out. Yeah.
Hey, I mean, like you said, if there's anything to get out of quarantine, I mean, to being productive, releasing stuff, being creative like that.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to do that is very nice.
Yeah. I'm actually working on actively recording songs for another EP to be released.
Busy man.
To be released, maybe before the end of 2020. But I'm also thinking about like, well, maybe you should take your time with it and to instead of on Fever Dream where I was like totally investing my energy and time into this one release and getting it out in a relatively short time period, considering I just spent 6 years on one, and then I took 2 months and released another one even before that one got released. But
pulling a Scott Sellers there.
Yeah. But trying to maybe take some time and develop the songs and really think about the craft, because like I said, I'm not necessarily like worried about playing to an audience or anything like that. Like if people like the tunes, that's incredible. That's more than I could ever ask for. But really taking these songs and trying to approach them in a more thoughtful way than I would if I was just like, I got to crank these songs out in a month and they sound great. Like I've actually got 4 of the songs are basically done. Like I could release them and it would sound like Fever Dream. But I want to take some time and kind of think about some creative ways to like make the songs just as good as I can possibly get them.
I think that's the better, to me, when artists like kind of have that mindset more of I want it to be something that I'm proud of, and if people like it, that's awesome. I feel like that normally comes out better that way.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't have anything to prove. You
Yeah.
know? This isn't my full-time thing. I've actually got my wife and I are expecting our first kid, our daughter, in September.
Oh, congrats, man.
And thank you. But I know that my schedule is going to drastically change around the fall. So, I know that I'm going to need to have a lot more patience with like being able to get away and do that fun stuff on the side that I'm doing. I also am a painter. I paint and make art and stuff. I know that all of that stuff is going to kind of take some adjusting to figure out like how much I can actually fit in and whether I can prioritize certain things or not. But
totally.
She's definitely going to be our our new full-time experience.
Oh, absolutely.
We can't wait. We're thrilled for sure.
No, that's awesome. And I mean, as we close up here, you want to tell people where they can find you on social media, where they can find the music. I mean, I know, same with your art stuff, man. All your stuff here, go ahead and promote, let people know where to find you, dude.
Okay. So on Bandcamp, it's joeycobra.bandcamp.com. You can find me on Spotify as well. Facebook would be facebook.com/Joey Cobra. Instagram is at Joey Cobra Music with underscores in between. If you want to check out my artwork, my website is josephgrice.art.
Go check that out. Yeah, you got music, you got art, got a bunch of stuff to check out. And we're going to play some stuff off Fever Dream. We got to play some Wake too. But we will kick it off right now with Won't Be Long off Fever Dream. Listen to this. Go check out the EP. Go check out Wake. Check out all his stuff. So right now here is Joey Cobra, Won't Be Long, right here on the Power Chord Hour.
point you can't save me from what I have, from who I have become. Demoralized, cannibalize the sun. We reject life, selfishly come undone. The things that we lost are nothing to the things that we've all grown to love. And when I fall, I know it won't take long until you're moving on. I knew it all along. Although they've tried, they can't have me. I will transcend, but I am not the one. My spirit flies, immortalized, I'll spiral towards the sun. And when I die, I know I'll become one with the things that we lost. Become nothing at all, it's the one thing I love. And when you fall, I won't be there at all. I won't be proven wrong. I knew it all along. You think I give a shit about that which concerns the things you talk about, but they have little worth. Don't you know how much we've lost? The dues we paid, I'm reminded of the cost. You think we give a shit that you have come this far? We were all meant to sleep here underneath the stars. You make me forget that we are all one. You bullshit. And I need to look at myself with as much criticism as everyone else. There'll be no burden on me, and the rich won't be received. And on the day that I die, I know right now I won't regret a single thing. And if you think I'll waste my time on anything, you might say you were dead wrong. I will live stress-free, I made up my mind. There'll be no burden on me.
Right here on the Power Chord Hour podcast off his brand new EP, Fever Dream. That was Joey Cobra with Beating the System. Before that was Joey's old band, Wake, with No Burden. That is the opener and the title track off their record, No Burden, which you can still grab off their Bandcamp. Before that was Joey Cobra with The Cost, and before that was Won't Be Long, both of those also off his brand new EP, Fever Dream. Go grab that. It is on his Bandcamp. It is on Spotify. I think just about everywhere you listen to your music. But I always like pushing people to Bandcamp. Go there, and they're also, Bandcamp has extended I believe it's like every first Friday of the month, they waive all fees for artists, so artists get to keep all the money when you buy their record on there. So go check that out. Look into that and make sure I know I'm not lying. That is actually what they're doing, but I might be screwing up the day. So make sure I'm giving you the right day to do it, but maybe go grab it then and, help Joey out. Also, like you heard, he has a kid on the way, so I'm sure he would appreciate that. And, be very rad of you to support some local music from here in Jamestown, no matter where you're at. And yeah, check it out. Check him out on all social media. And stay connected with Joey. And make sure you stay connected with the Power Chord Hour as well. If you're not following us online, we are everywhere at Power Chord Hour. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. If you're not listening there, shout out to you if you are listening to this on YouTube. We're on Spotify. Every week I put up a playlist of what I'm playing on the radio show. So, if you do not listen to the radio show or you miss an episode, you can go there and see what I'm playing on there. And, that's every week I put those up. So check it out. Also check out the Power Chord Hour radio show. That is every Friday night at 10 Eastern on 107.9 WRFA right here in Jamestown, New York, where I'm even recording this in the WRFA studio right now. Really, really rad station. Listen to my show, but my show's not shit compared to some of the other ones. We have some really good content and programming on there, lots and lots of local stuff. And, it'd be cool. Like I said, no matter where you're at, you can listen to us from anywhere on WRFALP.com. So I don't care where you are, listen to it. Check out the radio show and all the other shows on there. And like I mentioned earlier, I have an ass ton of, and I weighed it. It is an ass ton. I put it on a scale, and that's what the scale said. But I have an ass ton of CDRs from the radio show from the last 4 years. I got like 200 of them, and I don't need 200 of them. So hit me up, powerchordhour@gmail.com. I'll send you one free. Like I said, it's a playlist that I bring in here to do the radio show. So you'll get a little, you'll get whatever I was playing at the time. And who knows, probably like a lot of quote-unquote new music from like 2017, which is insane to think it's been 3 years now. But yeah, so hit me up for that. Also stickers. I got stickers. I got guitar picks. Shout out to Steve Clayton Custom for making some really rad custom picks for us. Hit me up, powerchordhour@gmail.com for those. Those are all free. All that stuff I was talking about is free. Gonna have t-shirts soon. You can, I'll let you know when those are. So I guess you can't hit me up just yet, but they look very, very rad. A listener, shout out Grace, right here in Jamestown, got us some made. She got us some made like a year ago, and we're out of them. And she just got some new ones made with a brand new design. I cannot wait to get them. They look rad. I thought the last ones looked really cool, but she outdid herself with these ones. I mean, shout out to her for making them. I mean, for no other reason than being a fan of the show. She, made those, and I give those out. Someone asked me about those, and I'm like, I would feel weird as hell trying to sell those when someone was cool enough to go get them made for us. Like maybe if I made them myself, maybe I would paid to get them made, I would go put them for sale. But it's like, if a listener was cool enough to get them made, I'm just going to give them, I'm going to give them away for free. Maybe we'll do a contest. We'll maybe do something kind of creative with it, but it's like, I'm not going to charge someone when someone was cool enough to go do that. So when I get those in hand, I'll let you know. And if you'd like a shirt, you can hit me up, and I may just give them out. I don't know. Maybe we'll do something cool. Not sure yet. Either way, you won't have to pay for them. And yeah, so that's it. I got free shit for you. This show's free. It's all, you're taking and taking from me, and the least you could do is go. I'm gonna make you guys feel bad here, and please go subscribe and rate us. I'm not gonna tell you give us 5 stars, because maybe I don't deserve 5 stars, but rate us and subscribe to us. It's the least you can do. So yeah, if you want to do that wherever you listen to your podcasts. But that is going to be it. Like I said, don't even check out next week. We'll do check out next week, but I will be back here in just a couple days with the July rundown. I'm going to play some couple songs here for you that came out this month, give you the music news, let you know the records that came out this month, and just talk some bullshit, as I always do, as I'm doing right now, So, yeah, a couple more days for that, and we will have another interview next week. I'm pretty stoked for it, and it's going to be... It's something, I mentioned earlier, Fat Records and compilations are near and dear to my heart. And another thing very, very near and dear to my heart, though I'm not actually from New Jersey, though I do like the state, New Jersey pop punk. So, something that, funny enough, has been very prevalent on this podcast, and really my radio show, considering my very first guest back in 2016 was Steve Neurotic from Shower with Goats, which is a New Jersey pop punk band. So, we got our, I guess not roots, but I guess kind of. We got some, I'm not really from there. I'm just a fan of the music. But yeah, we'll be talking Jersey next week, and it ain't even going to be Springsteen. It's going to be the real, we're going to get into it. And I'm pretty stoked for my guest. But yeah, that is going to be it for this episode. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Joey for doing this. And yeah, so for the Power Chord Hour, I'm Anthony Merchant. Thanks for listening.